Hi, everyone. This is Dr. Yaru Chen. I'm a research fellow from the Center for Healthcare Innovation Research. The center is a joint venture between Cass Business School and the School of Health Sciences. So the center was established since January 2019, and the current work that I will talk about is carried out while I was at Warwick Business School and Center for Healthcare Innovation Research. So I've got my email address here, and if you have any questions, please do feel free to get in touch. So today I'll talk about one of the aspects of the project I conducted before. So it will be about how professionals restructure their professional identity in case of a job redesign. So first of all, I'll just give you a brief introduction to the structure of my presentation today. So I firstly introduce the job redesign, and then I'll talk about how myself and my co-author, Professor Trish Ree from Alberta Business School, University of Alberta, Canada, how we did the data analysis together. And then I'll talk you through the process model that we developed. And lastly, I'll talk about the practical implications of the study. So first of all, a big background of the job redesign. So the job redesign was carried out in a health and social care organization in the UK. So the organization has three different occupational groups: occupational therapist, occupational therapist assistant, and caseworker. So the job redesign itself was carried out in around 2011, 2012. What happened was, before the job redesign, the OTs and the OTAs, they work together. Whenever there is a client phoned in, they will be called to do a clinical assessment of the client and see what kind of adaptation is needed for their house. And then once the clinical assessment is done, they will send a letter to the caseworker. And then the caseworker will take it on and then do the financial assessment as the benefit assessment, etc., and charitable funding application as well. And then the case will go on from there, from one party to another party, and then to the the technical officer, etc. And what happened with the job redesign was all the three different groups, they are required to take the job from the beginning to the end. So they will carry one case from when the client phones in, and then the case will be allocated to different professionals, and it could be an OT or OTA or caseworker, depending on the complexity of the case. It's a complex case, it goes to the OT, and then the OT follows that case through from beginning to the end. If it's a straightforward case, it goes either to OTA or caseworker. And all the three professional groups are required to take both clinical assessment and financial assessment. And then the professional who was in charge of the case was also able to see the final product to the client's house. And what I did then for the data collection was, when the job redesign was introduced 3 to 6 months, I carried out the first round of interviews with all staff and managers. And then about 1 year and 1.5 years in between, I carried another round of interviews. And I've also collected observation data in between these interviews, and also observation data of training sessions, team meetings. I've also collected documents about, for example, job specification, training documents, as well as team meeting minutes, etc. So what we did was the interviews, I transcribed all of them word by word, and then the observation data was written up as well, and the documents was compiled together. And what we did was to analyze the data. So for example, I'll give you a few examples. So from the data, the original data, we abstract the meaning of the data. And then that comes to the first order analysis, which in our case was expressing dislike of the new tasks. And then from several first order analysis, we derive the final more abstract level of meaning, such as complaining about the new work. So for example, expressing dislike of the new tasks. On one of the caseworker training session, I observed that following heated discussion among staff about sharing each other's role, one OT said to the trainer that she liked the way how they used to work and was very confused about the new way of working. She further claimed, I don't know anything about caseworker. I don't know what I'm doing here, i.e., attending the caseworker training session. So there was very much expressed dislike of the new tasks from all the three groups. They all like the original role and they don't want to take the new work. And they feel that the new work is not part of their role, it's not what they want to do. And also in this process at the beginning, they found that themselves constantly lost in the new role and losing control of work process. And that gives them a lot of stress and also upset. And also the experience challenges brought by new immediate colleagues. This means that before the OTs and the OTAs, they work together. And the caseworkers, what connects them is an envelope saying that this client has done clinical assessment, and what is needed now is a financial assessment. So they don't actually have any interaction. Whereas with the job redesign, they were relocated to the same office, and also there was a period that the management introduced shadowing. So the caseworkers and either a caseworker and the OT or caseworker and the OTAs, they would be working together. And then they found that really challenging because, for example, one of the caseworkers, ever since then, that means the incident when the caseworker challenged the OT, the caseworkers will say, oh, you did it for so and so, why aren't you doing it for this client? So these two OTs feeling that they are challenging their work autonomy and also their professional judgment. So all these experience made them complain about the new work and don't like to continue working in the new way. So this is just an example to show one of the stages how we actually analyze the data. So now I will go into details of the findings. So what we found is 4 different stages across the 4 years that we did the study, how the professionals gradually restructured their professional identity and accepted the new work. So the first one is first stage, they resisted the new professional identity and they were mourning loss of previous work. This is reflected in 2 aspects. The first aspect is what I have just described about complaining about the new work. And the second one is about expressing concerns about quality of service. For example, the caseworkers, they are concerned that the OTs and the OTAs, they don't know enough about benefits, and they don't know enough about housing safety issues, that they don't provide a rounded service to the clients. Whereas the OTs, they were concerned, OTs and OTAs, they were concerned that the caseworkers haven't got any medical backgrounds and any training specifically in occupational therapy. So they might miss things that the OTs and the OTAs wouldn't miss. And the second stage is about conserving professional identity, original professional identity, and avoiding the new work. So as the professionals are employed within organizations, so if they want to be continued employed and continue to working, then they have to continue to work in the organization, and then they have to engage in work rounds to continue previous tasks because they are still reluctant to let go of their current professional identity. And what they were trying to do is to continue identify with the previous work and then ask colleagues to work in their originally separate ways. For example, the caseworkers and the OTs. So they agreed, they have this conceptual agreement that when they go out, then caseworker would continue to work on the financial assessment, whereas the the OTs and OTAs will work on the clinical assessment. And then the third stage is about parking professional identity, previous professional identity, and learning the new work. So with the managerial pressure that by this stage, I'll mention that about 1/3 of the professionals left the organization. And then the other 2/3 left because might be practical reasons or other reasons they stayed in the organization. And then by this time, they realize there is nothing they can do about this job redesign, and they have to continue working in the organization. And then they just set what we call is they set aside concerns about their professional identity and try to carry out the new work in creative way. So what the professional would say, for example, I know this is not going to go back and there's nothing we can do. I've had enough. I complained, and there's nothing happening. So I realized that I just have to continue working in the new way. So this is most of what the professionals would say at this stage. And also because they have been working a while and they have found new ways of working that make the new role less dislikable, shall we say. So for example, they found creative ways to work, such as changing previous work practices by calling clients beforehand. Just give you an example. So before, the caseworkers, they were absolutely fine getting to the client's house and ask them for the financial assessment. And they don't feel embarrassed or anything at all. But then the OTs and the OTAs, whenever they do that, they feel it's very sensitive information and they shouldn't ask that. But then they have to ask it. So they found it's very difficult to accept themselves psychologically. So what they did was they called the clients beforehand and asked them to prepare the to prepare the financial documents. And so when they are actually at the client's house to review the financial documents, they're feeling much better. So this is one way of them how to work in a creative way that make them cognitively ready for the new work. And then the second one, one other way is parking certain problems. Because as the professionals claim that there are so many different branches to the new work, to the new way of working, and they couldn't, sometimes at the beginning, they just couldn't remember all different things. So when they are at the client's house, when they ask something on the spot and they can't answer, that would make them feel very unprofessional and give them a very bad working experience. So what they do is they park the problems and then they say, okay, I'll get back to you because we are working together from beginning to the end and you know me well. And I'll go back to my colleagues and then I'll come back to you with the answer. So that way they feel better. They don't feel pushed on the spot. And also they feel that the clients get a better service as well. And similar to the previous problem, some of the professionals found that using a notebook to take note of the process, where they are and what else is needed to do for these clients, is really helpful in working in the new way. So the final stage is once the professionals are accomplished what they have for the new role, they retrieve and modify their professional identity. So it's kind of like they park their car somewhere, which is a professional identity, in a security spot. They go back and take it, and But this way, when they go back, because they have already learned the new way of working, and they also recognize the value of the new work, and they see themselves in new ways, so they were able to retrieve their parked professional identity and also at the same time modify it because they see the new work, the value of the new work. So what we found is this process model of moving from professional identity A to professional identity B. And we also identify three mechanisms throughout this process. So the first one is identity protection. So at the beginning, what the professionals are trying to do is to protect their professional identity and their relevant works around this. And then at one stage, they felt that they have to move on. Then the managerial pressure made them to move on, to move a little bit forward. And then once they learn the new way of working and the feedback from stakeholders, in our case, the patient, the clients, help them to actually reaffirm the new work and retrieve and modify the professional identity they held before to a new professional identity, which is the professional identity B. So these are the main parts of the study. And what I would like to mention as the last point is the practical implications from our research. So first of all, what can managers do in case of job redesign? We would suggest that managers should give encouragement and time for professionals while pushing them to try and learn the new role. So professional identity is a very difficult thing to change, and professionals have it for quite a long time of period, and it's not easy just to change overnight. So it needs time and it needs encouragement from the managers. So to achieve this, the managers need to stay well informed so that they understand where professionals are in terms of the 4 different stages that we have developed. And also the managers should evaluate the most appropriate time to introduce training courses and senior mentoring schemes so that these training courses and senior mentoring schemes can actually help professionals to restructure their professional identity and accept the new work role rather than having adverse effects. So in job redesign, what professionals can do, we would suggest that professionals should try out the new work and learn firsthand how it affects them and their clients, and also try to reserve their judgment on anomalies and set aside their deeply rooted understandings of what they should do as professionals. So this is for professionals to give themselves the time and space to digest the new work role and try it rather than being resistant throughout. And also the professionals should suspend their judgment of the new work and their professional selves for some time to allow themselves to learn the new work and see how it actually affects the clients and see if the new work role represents the value they developed as a professional. So that would be all from me for my presentation. Thank you very much. So if you would like to find more about our Center for Healthcare Innovation Research, please follow the website here, and we would love to hear from you. Thank you.
Great, that was great, thank you. Just a couple of questions.
Of course.
With the kind of timescales from kind of resisting through to kind of embracing the new role, kind of how long were you kind of following this group of people for?
So I followed them for about 4 years. So the first 2 stages are actually interviews and observations from the first time period in interview, which was around 3 to 6 months after the official initiation of the job redesign. So the second, the third stage and the fourth stage were actually around 1 year and 1 year and a half after the introduction of the after the first round of interview. So that would be around 2 years after the initial introduction.
Right. And it was kind of towards the end of that, did you find that the people were kind of very much embracing the new role and could see the benefits of it?
Yes, yes, that's what we found. Because and also around the first and second stage, there were 1/3 of the professionals left the organization.
Yeah. Yes. So they presumably went back to a role that they're more comfortable and familiar with, and it was kind
Yes,
of a different group of people that stayed.
yes.
Was there anything? Could you identify any differences between the kind of the people that stayed and the people that left, or was it I suppose more of a personal decision for them?
Yeah, it is a variety of reasons. It can be personal reasons, and also it can be some professionals, they are deeply rooted in their original professional identity, and they resist it in a way that they absolutely shut the door for other possible opportunities. And also there are personal reasons, a few of them are personal reasons as well.
Okay. Okay. So if another similar local authority was about to kind of set out on this process, how long do you
Mhm.
think it would reasonably take if they kind of followed your recommendations to kind of move from kind of resisting to embracing? What do you think would be a reasonable time for them to kind of expect that they could move through that process?
Well, the case I followed, I would say it take about 2 to 3 years to be in the place where the professionals who stay in the organization accepted the new role.
Yeah.
So I guess it might be similar, or if they have it, because this organization, they were doing it, for example, well, I think maybe other organizations doing this, if they can learn some experiences and lessons, it might help them in moving it a bit quicker, or help the staff accepting it better,
Yeah.
if that makes sense.
Yes. Yes.
Please.
So in terms of the kind of the outcomes for the end users or the clients, did you kind of observe an improvement as you kind of went through the program? The kind of that people were getting better outcomes and getting their adaptations quicker as a result of the changes?
Oh, I see. Okay, so for the end users, what I gathered from the professionals are both caseworkers, OTA/OTs. They mentioned this, that the clients are super happy about the new way of working because they only have one person to deal with. And these people are mostly elderly clients and also vulnerable people. And they found it easier to deal with one person. Whenever they have problem, they just pick up the phone and speak to that one person, and they like it, and they like the continuous interaction with just one person rather than several different people going to their house requesting different sensitive information. So this is I would say quite a good outcome, whereas for the time schedule, etc., I didn't follow that.
Okay, great. No, that's been really useful. Thank you. I think it's been it was a really interesting study when I came across it. So having you kind of bring it to life has been really useful. Thank you.